Hello everybody, my name is Will and welcome back to Flyout. Today we're going to be designing something extremely good fun. We're going to be designing a flying pancake. This thing is going to be based off the aircraft called the V173 and later developed into the XF5U. These aircraft are basically circles. I can't really describe it in any other way. It's a full lifting body design, designed by Vought, or more specifically Charles Zimmerman, I think is his name. And yeah, it was an odd thing. They built 3 of them, I think, in total. One V173 and two XF5Us. And as far as I know, the design of this thing was intended to be a carrier aircraft. So kind of short takeoff and landing. And then it had 2 piston engines buried inside the body to power 2 propellers on either side of the cockpit. And this design, it has captivated the hearts and the minds of many, should we say, for a very long time. If you look up Flying Pancake, you will see thousands of loving images of these things. Honest to God, these are one of definitely, like, my favorite aircraft in terms of just crazy designs. There's been some wacky things designed over the years. Some people just shouldn't really be given the the pen and paper to design an aircraft with. But whoever came up with this one, you really did a job. It's gonna sound like I don't actually love this thing. I honestly do, but unfortunately, they're not particularly good. I think the thing that surprised me the most is the performance of this thing in real life wasn't actually that bad. As far as I'm aware, it was cancelled mostly because of, like, vibration problems and overruns of budgets, and, you know, also the common problem that why design a new aircraft when the Mustang's doing it perfectly well? It's kind of the death knell of a lot of designs, but it's one of those ones where you were like, oh yeah, well, they probably built some prototypes and then they crashed and they decided, this is a stupid idea, and they just did something else because it wasn't a great idea to build an aircraft out of a disc. But that's not really the story at the end of the day, and that's just good fun. to say nothing else. It's just odd. And the Americans, let's let them off here. Not the only aircraft that was ever designed to be a circle. I mean, if I just look here, there's the SAC AS6 designed by Germany in 1944. God knows what that was meant to do, but that's even more circular. With one propeller in the center and just a big old circle. And then there was also the Nemeth Parasol, which was a guy called Stephen Nemeth from Dayton, Ohio. Came up with basically what I can best describe as a traditional interwar biplane with a big circular parasol wing above it. Which is just amazing, frankly. I love these things. And this kind of crazy design, I think, is one of the reasons that I just have to love Flyout at the moment, because you can get away with such ridiculous things in Flyout, so long as you can get the aerodynamics to work to a slight degree. You can have so much freedom. I personally find aircraft are just a little bit more flexible than tanks. Obviously, that doesn't mean I don't love designing tanks. I do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been doing this for 2 years. But, you know, the actual freedom of the only thing that an aircraft needs to look like is, well, nothing in particular. So long as it has the ability to fly, you can kind of shape it however you like, and if you can work out that problem, it'll go. You know, the tanks have the limitation of they have to look a certain way just because of where elements have to be. You know, your driver has to stick out the front slightly, and he has to be able to see in front of him. The engine has to fit somewhere, and then the turret crew need to have a basket underneath it. So there's kind of these limitations that can mean that sometimes it can be difficult to come up with like a particularly interesting tank design. God knows that you guys come up with them in the suggestions channel, and I imagine some of you in the comments below are going to come up with some limitations that aircraft have. You know, the engine tends to have to go on the front if you're using a propeller, but then again, you can put it in the middle and on the back if you're crazy. And people were crazy and have been crazy, and they've done it, which is that's just good fun, really. There's a bunch of channels I watch that just cover a bunch of these weird aircraft, and they're so mesmerizing to watch. I mean, off the top of my head, Rex's Hangar, I know he is at least somewhat aware of my channel. He does some fantastic stuff on some crazy aircraft, normally longer form content. Well, I say that, a lot of them are only about 15 minutes long, but some of them reach up to 30 to 45 minutes, and that's good fun. And then on the shorter side of things, typically from 5 to 10 minutes, you've got Ed Nash's Military Matters, and he just covers so many ridiculous aircraft. If I just head over now, you can see... actually, the most recent vehicle isn't an aircraft at all. It's an anti-tank drone. But things like the Focke-Wulf 159, which was a parasol wing fighter, which that's another one I want to build. Parasol wings in general are just crazy to me, and I think I've seen a concept design for an F-104 with like a diamond-shaped parasol wing above it, which is just incredible. And I want to go. I want to have a go at designing one of those, because that just seems like it would be, I keep saying it, but it sounds like it would be great fun to actually fly around in. And so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I can still do in this game. is basically the tangent that I've been on for this entire building segment, while I've built what is, I personally believe, a fairly good representation of a V173. This isn't the same as an XF5U. The XF5U has these big circular intakes on the kind of in between the wing. No, not in between the in between the cockpit and the engines on that wing root segment there. And that did give me the idea of kind of using these wingtips for like little tiny early radars, and then having a pair of jet engines that stick out the back and designing a jet version of this. So let me know if you want to see that. That would be a little bit interesting, but yeah. We're pretty much done with the design at this point now, so we're going to give it a lick of paint, but I'm going to leave that up to old me to do. Or, well, future me for you, old me for me. Obviously, I've already designed it when I'm saying this, and painted it. This is complicated, and I'm not going to worry you with the actual intricacies of this, because we're just going to return to the gameplay, and we're going to see how well this thing actually flies. Editor's note, apologies for the audio leveling coming up. Well, here we have the pancake. Let's give her a quick lick of paint. I do not have the time today to go through all of these material slots and change them one by one. So we're just gonna be painting it yellow. Okay, I said that and then immediately changed the material on the entire plane, or at least in most places. Oh, I forgot an entire wing. Oh. So yeah, paint job is done. It's a little bit strange, and needs touching up in areas, I believe. But, oh no, our idle RPM isn't enough. Anyway, what I was about to say before I was so rudely interrupted by myself is this thing does fly. It sure flies. However, there comes with the design some extremely unusual flight characteristics. This is not an easy aircraft to fly by any stretch of the imagination, and actually using this for anything other than just testing flying around in it, I feel you will start to have some serious difficulties. The speed is not particularly amazing either. We move at a speed, but that speed regularly exceeds about 350 kilometers an hour. That is not particularly quick. and the climb rate is nothing to write home about either. We do have a lot of lift, which means we kind of don't stall very easily, but yeah, that's not a great trade-off given everything else that comes with this design. We will give us some beans, let's see how fast we can go, but once we get up to speed, we are going to encounter another one of the problems that I've had during the design process of this thing here. Okay, so we're just about to crack 400 kilometers an hour, and it's already just a little bit happening. You can see the actual directional indicator telling me where I'm going is just creeping to the left. And then if I actually try and correct it, things get a lot worse. I've got these rudders to rectify it, and you'd think that they'd be enough to make it stable, but somehow this thing never quite levels out. And you end up just slewing to the side when you're going at reasonably high speeds. I mean, we're getting up to a fair pace now, actually. We're getting up to 500, 450 kilometers an hour isn't too bad. Like, we're getting towards 500-ish, which at that point is a fair whack of speed. But also, you can just see how much each percentage of pitch controls my aircraft. and this rudder problem will never go away above anything above like 380. But yeah, I mean, other than that, it actually turns pretty well, all things considered. It's never going to turn like a Spitfire, and the roll rate is just absolutely atrocious. But it flies. It sure does fly. And if you want something that just doesn't stall and can kind of land at low speeds, I guess this is your aircraft. Yeah, it's a strange one. It really is a strange one. Now, I don't think there's anything I can spawn in here that I can really go for, because I can put guns on this, but we're never going to catch up to a target drone, especially not aim at it with this thing. One thing we could do is see what is mouse aim like in this. Oh my goodness me. We are bouncing around something fierce here. This is what happens when you have an aircraft without fly-by-wire installed and you try and take manual control. If you do just little movements, just tiny little movements, you can almost stop it from doing it. But no, it doesn't like that. Okay, fair enough. But yeah, basically, there's not a lot more I can actually do with this thing. It's kind of useless, to be honest. I mean, this thing in real life, it never really passed the prototyping stages. They did build one of these, the XF. Not what am I talking about? The V173, I think it was called. I probably said it earlier and got it correctly, because that actually is after now. I'll look it up before I do the bit that you've already seen. But this is properly spaceship looking. I mean, the fact that this flies at all, I am quite impressed by, even if its flight characteristics are not the best. And flight characteristics are one thing. Landing characteristics, I feel, may be an entire other kettle of fish. So let's just see if we can actually land this thing at all. It may take a couple of attempts, because these propellers are so big that we kind of need an aggressive flare in order to land. And it's going to be, I feel, very easy to stall this thing and just crash it. So let's try and get a line up here, and we have a really long runway out here in the desert, so we have quite a long way to make mistakes and still recover. Okay, I think what I'm going to try and do is, instead of flaring all the way so that that rear landing gear actually touches the ground, I'm just going to get the front wheels on the ground, and then we're going to roll a little bit until the rear wheel can touch. That was a bit aggressive. And then just need to lose some throttle, cut it, and hit the brakes, but not too much. We don't want to nose over here, and break the props. Good God. That may genuinely be one of my best landings so far. That was completely flawless. All right. Well, yeah, we've not done this for long, so let's put some guns in the nose and play around with armament. And, of course, because this is an American design, I couldn't not go with a bunch of 50... Goodness me, a bunch of 50 cals on the nose of this thing. I think we might need a muzzle brake there. The flash of the guns, yeah, does somewhat hinder pilot visibility when you fire. That is interesting. Okay, but yeah, you can see a lot of 50 cals on the front of this, specifically 8 of the things, which is the same armament as the P-47's got, which is a fair whack. No, wait, hang on. Did the P-47 get 8? I think it only got 6, actually. No, P-47 got 8. It's the P-51 I'm thinking of. The P-51 had 6 50 cals. I do always find the 50 cal an interesting caliber weapon, because it's kind of in between a machine gun and a cannon in its actual caliber. Obviously, it's a light machine gun as opposed to rifle caliber machine gun round, but it's a strange one because it didn't really have the punch of a 20mm, and it didn't really have the ability to be so fast firing as a smaller caliber gun. But America found this nice middle ground between the two. It just worked fantastically, and they just stuck with it for the whole war. And very few other countries actually built all of their planes to the same standardized gun. I mean, there was a fair set of standards. You had the Germans with the 20mm MG151s, you had the British with the 20mm Hispano cannons, but both of those weren't as widespread on the aircraft as the 50 cal was, because they would be accompanied by smaller caliber weapons. You'd have 20 mils and 13 mils, or 20 mils and 7 mils. And so, for the Americans to basically only use 50 cals on the vast majority of their aircraft, it's really interesting. And I've watched far too many documentaries on it not to know that it was basically a logistical thing, which is, it's just interesting. Hopefully you also found that interesting. Otherwise, I've just shared with you a completely uninteresting fact. Regardless, that's a lot of 50 cals, and we have a lot of ammo. I mean, let's try for another landing and just keep shooting while we're at it, why don't we? It sounds like a good thing to be doing right now. Still going. Still shooting. Still shooting. Still shooting. Will it ever end? Eventually, it must. There we go. So 8 50 cals took, I want to say 30 seconds of continual firing to run out of ammo. So that's quite a lot. It's 3,200 rounds. And I think, to be honest, that's not actually out of the ordinary for our American aircraft of the era. Oh, America. I love you. Really. Honestly. Your planes are cool. Never change. But yeah, I mean, there's not a lot else I can do with this right now. If you want to see me play around with kind of full body wing, blended wing, all wing designs, maybe a Horton, maybe jet-powered versions of these, let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you have any other designs, you can leave them there as well that you'd like me to give a shot at. And furthermore, you can check out my Discord, which will be linked in the description, where you can leave your suggestions for vehicles here. And when Flyout releases, I'll also be releasing the aircraft that I design in these videos in a channel just for you to download, have a play with, and come up with your own little versions of. And lots of ands here. If you have any lore for this vehicle that you would like to pop in the Discord, there is now a lore channel to do that. Granted, this one is more of a replica than an ahistorical build, but you know what? Feel free to just chime away anyway. But there we go. That's been a very long outro. Apologies for that, but lots to say. And I really hope you enjoyed this one. I know I did, and I hope you will join me for future things like this. So for now, Goodbye! And as always, a huge thank you to my patrons: Badger, Burner Potato, CamJam135, Cody N, DJ Pete, Skavoon, Gamato929, Sad Cat, Just a Casualty 621, Last Legend 11, Mark, Mardley Invested, Nicholas K, Rulsas Bokken, Ryan Brody, The Canesian Emperor, Zerasheim, and Sight Wolverine. Thank you so much for your support.